Let's be real for a second. AI is not a bubble. But if you spend any time on this platform, you've seen so many videos of people claiming that AI is here. It's better than ever. And now they just let all of these AI agents do all of their work while they sit nicely on a beach or a nice patio in some place like Miami. But at the end of the day, most of these people constantly show the same use cases that are super generic and don't apply to real business. I'm talking about those people that constantly say, write me an email, or generate me some content ideas, or help me plan a trip to wherever they need to go. And to be honest, in my opinion, this is all BS, because if you own a real business, you actually know that this is just playing with chatbots. This is not real cases of how to actually use AI for businesses. So I'm here to talk about this from the perspective of somebody that does own and run a business. Like I said at the beginning, I don't think AI is a bubble, but it is massively overhyped. Because at its core, I believe it's simply a faster, more efficient chatbot. And once you understand how to actually implement it into your own business operations, it will make your life and your team's life a lot easier. In my opinion, the real key isn't in the prompts themselves, but it's more in the idea of workflows. This is a fundamental mindset switch in how we face our day-to-day work. And I want to show you exactly how that looks, at least from my perspective. So let's start from the beginning. Let's look at how a business normally runs most of their day-to-day operations before AI. So let's start from the very beginning. Let's think about your new client's onboarding. You meet a new client, you go over a plan to work together, and eventually you reach an agreement. This is where the new project actually usually starts. And before AI, these are the steps that normally you would take. Normally, that meeting either happens in person or online. So you would try to write down as many notes as possible about that meeting and the agreement that you reached. And that can be done in a basic piece of paper or a notes app, whatever the case might be. And of course, when you take notes, they're not organized, they're a little messy. So the next step will usually be to go back to the office, reorganize those notes, and make sure that you have a clear summary and you have clear action items. Now, once all the notes and action items are ready, normally you will send those notes to an assistant or an operation manager, whoever usually handles that for you. And that is where the manual labor really starts. Because your assistant now has to do the following. Manually enter all the new client's information into the CRM. Now you have to create a new folder structure for the new project in whichever archive system you use, set up a project file in your project management system, and then proceed to create every single task manually for yourself or the team. And finally, once all of that is done, normally you send out a project kickoff email. For most businesses, this process can take between 1.5 to 2-3 hours, maybe depending on the situation, whether the meeting was in person and then you need to drive back to the office in traffic and organize the notes, so on and so forth. And this is for every single new client that comes in. Now, when we introduce AI into these workflows, things get a lot easier, and I want to show you how. So let's assume that we are now having a meeting. A lot of us nowadays are having a lot of online meetings. A lot of meetings happen on Zoom or Google Meet. Instead of taking manual notes, we do two things. If it's an in-person meeting, it's convenient to record a conversation, record a meeting. Of course, if there's an agreement that's going to be allowed, that would be ideal. But if you're able to record the meeting instead of writing down everything, that would be a lot easier. Instead, if the meeting is online, we simply use Google Meet that has already the integration with Gemini, and we let Gemini take notes for us and transcribe the whole meeting. So now we let technology do the listening. The next step is simple. Once we take that recording, let's assume it's a Google Meet, Gemini will be able to immediately create transcripts whilst the meeting happens. And once the meeting is completed, it creates a very well organized summary with all the notes. And most importantly, it already generates all of the action items and the people that will need to be assigned to those action items. If instead, let's say we have an in-person meeting and we decide that we will be recording the meeting rather than writing everything down, we give that recording to Gemini and we ask it to create a summary of all the meeting, create the notes summary, and create the action items based on the recording. In this way, we're not guessing what we said, we're not going to get confused between messy notes. We literally have it word for word transcribed by AI and let AI do the heavy lifting of reorganizing everything, giving it a very clear and logical structure, and create the action items like I said. Normally, this becomes a process that rather than taking a couple of hours, let's say that we do an in-person meeting and we want to immediately do the notes or we want to send them to somebody, we can record a meeting, send it to our assistant puts it into Gemini does the work, and instead of having to waste that time, it's done in a couple of minutes. This also applies to communications. So it's very important for our business owners to try and keep the communications feel original, feel like They are the ones actually writing the conversations. They don't want to sound too standardized. They don't want to sound like a machine. So most of the times, whenever there's, for example, let's say you are a real estate brokerage and you have a lot of communications that need to happen for a real estate transaction. Most of the times, you can already organize all of the communications that need to happen in a transaction, and your team needs to simply copy those communications templates, paste them into a new email, change all the information, the names, the dates, critical information that are specific to that transaction, but at least the context and the overall structure of the emails are yours. Now, the easy way to do this with AI is that you can simply set up, let's say, Gemini Jam with all of your communication templates, and then you literally just ask it to draft all of the communications for this new transaction and this new client. So it already adds all of the new dates, deadlines, action items, names, everything that needs to be customized. It does the heavy lifting for you. So rather than having to copy and paste and make changes later, and that can also cause somebody to make mistakes sometimes, you can leave it to Gemini to already have all the communications and draft all the details you need and simply actually do a copy and paste. This basically means that you go from being the one doing the manual input to becoming more of a reviewer, whether that is you or your team. This mindset switch means that we let AI do the heavy lifting and we just focus on reviewing the information. Another very strong use case, for me especially, like I mentioned, oftentimes it's very complicated and very time consuming to draft SOPs. It can take a very long time to get it right, to take all the right screenshots, to show how to do things properly and then rewrite them. One way to do this nowadays is, especially for me, I screen record something that I want to make into an SOP. I specifically show how to do everything, I mention all of the details, and then I give the screen recording to Gemini and ask Gemini to create the new SOP. Gemini will be able to listen and get the details of the recording, and it generates all the SOPs probably better than even I could. It's got a very clear way to organize the information, summarize it, and give step-by-step action items. Another super strong way to also deal with SOPs, in my opinion, and your overall knowledge base is, instead of using Gemini, use NotebookLM. A lot of people may not feel comfortable giving the knowledge base information of your company to a tool that is still public and connected to the web. So you can use NotebookLM. NotebookLM is not connected to the web. It doesn't do web searches. NotebookLM is specifically only creating information based on sources that you provided. So you can kind of think of this as your inside AI brain for your company. And the beauty of NotebookLM is that NotebookLM is super good at understanding the context on the information you provided, and it can generate a lot of different documents that you might need through the SOPs that you provided. So let's say you have a lot of different SOPs in the form of Google Docs. With NotebookLM, you don't even need to give it many information. You can literally just click a few buttons to have it generate infographics, flashcards, slides, and probably the most important function is the podcast audio generation. Now, for a lot of people, this may seem boring, but I know for a fact that as a business owner, you might spend a long time drafting SOPs and having a very full knowledge base for your business. And when you delegate work to your team, there will still be a lot of situations where you end up having your team calling you or texting you for details on operations that they can already solve just by reading through the knowledge base that you've already provided them. Now, if your SOPs are written well, you can generate the audio podcast with NotebookLM. And the beautiful thing about it is that it generates an audio overview of your entire sources that you provided. And your team doesn't just listen to it, because that can also take quite some time. It can be between 10 to 30 minutes long. It can be very boring. The beautiful thing about it is that your team can interact with it. They can ask questions to that kind of podcast that generated audio.
Drama. Our source material is full of these Oh, hey there, what's up?
Hi there, I have a quick question. I don't remember, what is the deadline for real estate transactions, especially for residential transactions in Texas, in terms of the escrow and option deposit, and what is the standard amount of days we have to complete the inspection? And does that include weekends, or does it only include business days?
That is a fantastic and absolutely critical question.
Okay, let's unpack this right now because this is the bedrock of the entire timeline.
You're asking about paragraph 5 of the Trek contract.
And the simple answer is that the deadline for the deposit is within 3 days after the contract's effective date.
That 3-day window applies to both the earnest money and the option fee.
And crucially, those days are calendar days, not business days, unless the final day falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or a legal holiday.
If that happens, the deadline extends to the end of the next day that isn't one of those holidays.
So if you execute the contract on a Friday, your deadline's usually Monday.
But if Monday is a holiday, it pushes to Tuesday. That 3-day rule is unforgiving.
Here's where it gets really interesting for the inspection part of your question.
You asked about the standard amount of days for the inspection. That's tied directly to the option period.
Our sources show the standard amount period is 7 days.
And yes, those 7 days also include weekends and holidays.
Notebook LM is probably the strongest tool that you can use to really make your knowledge base be so much more efficient than it's ever been. And now, just to kind of close things up, this of course also includes having to work on some marketing related operations. Now, whether you use Gemini, OpenAI, Claude, whichever AI system you want to use, AI makes it very easy to research on trends, topics related to your business, and creating a full 30-day calendar. It is very convenient, and it goes from taking you a couple hours of research to just taking minutes. In my opinion, this does show that AI is not a bubble. I see this as something that does create feasible, tangible results by literally just reducing the amount of time wasted on the back office. And any business owner knows that back office related operations actually are most times what causes the biggest drag on growth for any business. There's so much time that is wasted on low value tasks in the back office that have simply always been there. And normally the answer has always been to just hire more people, just delegate more work. For a lot of small business owners, that has not been easy. If you need to hire people, your business needs to have the cash flow to be able to do so. So in my opinion, AI is actually more likely to become the biggest help that small business owners can use. I think it's very important to note that it is also going to be this useful and powerful only if you know how to allow your team to use these tools. Because I do not think that AI is already here to take so many jobs away. If you think that you're going to be that kind of business owner that just uses AI to solve all your problems, you're likely going to end up still spending the same amount of work at home just chatting with the chatbot trying to do the operations. That is not what you want as a business owner. You want to have more work. You want to be able to get out of your office, meet new clients, and just grow your business. And in order to do that, you need something that brings efficiency into your team. And the only way to achieve this nowadays, in my opinion, is AI. So if you do use AI like this, I do see it becoming a new back office superpower, basically. Just do not use AI to fire a lot of people. Use AI to make your team work twice as fast. Whatever used to take 4 hours of work, it's now going to take less than 1, which means that you're likely not going to work less. It's more likely that we will all be working more.